So we've got Dan in with us today. Dan is one of our amateur golfers on our performance plan. He's been working with me for a while on his fitness side, and he's more recently been working with Jack on the golf swing side. He's made a few changes recently to his golf swing, specifically in the long game, making some changes to his move. So he's going to come down to the studio today for a full profiling of his power blueprint, physical blueprint. We're going to try and get some stuff matched up for his golf swing and how his body's working. So really excited to see what we get from the session with Dan today. Really excited to see the results we get, and then we're going to talk back to the golf swing and check in with Jack at the end, just to make sure everything's on track. So really excited to have Dan in today. Looking forward to seeing his power blueprint, checking all of his numbers, and seeing what results we can get for him. What were the changes that you made swing-wise?
I just feel like wide to wide, so really just keep my arms. My lead arm, I almost feel like I'm just pushing that as far away from myself as I can. Forces my body to turn.
Yeah.
I keep my arms closer together so that trail elbow doesn't start doing weird, funky stuff popping up there. That was killing. So I kind of go that way. Turn, and then I just basically just keep wide to wide. It's probably shorter and probably maybe a little bit of distance.
So much more focus on rotation.
Yeah.
Much less requirement on like kind of the arms generating speed.
I feel like
hands generating speed.
I don't feel like
okay. So when a player comes and says to me that they have made some changes to their golf swing that require the body to start working a little bit harder, I'm definitely going to be interested in seeing if there's any limitations that are going to make that a little bit harder for them. So Dan's talking a lot here about him being able to create some depth and some width. He's definitely going to be using the kind of core rotational muscles a lot more. So it's going to be really important that we go in and start testing some of these things to make sure, one, that there's no restrictions, and two, that there's no gaps in power. They're going to help basically stop him hitting the ball as far as he currently is. So definitely more of a rotational speed aspect.
Yeah.
And I assume then that the consequence of that is you using the ground a little bit better to try and generate that speed. That might be happening.
By consequence, probably not. I don't consciously think of that.
Fine. Anything else you want to go over today specifically? Anything else you want to cover? Any other interests? Any other things you want to take away?
Just by nature, like driving this morning. I do quite a lot of driving, quite a lot of sitting at a desk.
Fine.
So yeah, I think that's something I just can't keep on top of.
Good. So hip mobility, ankle mobility, we'll check over those.
Shoulder would be good as well, because I find actually with me doing like having that sort of this elbow flaring, is that something I think generally there's always been okay, but that's probably worth looking at.
We'll do a little bit of speed work, test those numbers, have a look at rotational power. We'll have a look at hip mobility, ankle mobility, and shoulder mobility and stability. Anything else?
No, I like the sound of that. Looks good.
Okay, great. So we started Dan off with our basic level 1 mobility and stability screening. So we went through some simple postural assessments, making sure that his body can maintain posture, making sure that he can separate his lower body from his upper body. And then we moved on to a little bit more rotational mobility tests. And when we went on to the hips, we can really start to see that there were some limitations here. So we've got a player here that's telling us they're wanting to start to rotate a little bit more in their golf swing, try to take some of the upper body movements out of this and start to use some more of this rotation. But we're seeing immediately a restriction in that lower body, which for me is some alarm bells. But some of that restriction in his hips is being made up for by some good rotation in his torso and some good rotation in the shoulders. So he's definitely got some rotational capabilities here, but we just to make sure that his lower body gets freed up enough for him to utilize it in his swing. There's just a few other minor mobility things we need to check in. Just slightly tight through the hamstrings, a little bit of tightness through some of the ankles, a little bit of tightness in the adductors. So just a few things for us to keep a lookout for. Dan trains really hard, works really hard in the gym, so it's not unusual for us to have some kind of stiffness work that's going to need to be looked after. But we just need to make sure these don't become an issue for him and don't limit his golf swing moving forward. So once we completed his mobility and stability screening, we needed to start looking at his power. Now, what we do here when we look at power is we're really interested in taking a power number and then trying to work out how we're going to improve that power number. So we're going to do multiple different power tests, and we're going to start to look at whether that's being held back by strength or being held back by speed. So the easiest way for us to do that is to measure his power and measure his strength. And if we want to improve power, if strength is low, we'll go after strength first. If his strength is good, we'll go after speed as the power source. So we first looked at his strength, we looked at his lower body strength. So for this, we do a split squat, we do left leg and right leg. And for this, we're just doing a perceived 8 rep maximum. So how much weight does he think he'll be able to lift for 8 good repetitions? And we do this on the left leg and the right leg. We're looking for any left to right imbalances, but we're also looking at pure strength numbers as well. And Dan's numbers here were great, so I had no worries at all for his lower body strength. When we then move to the upper body strength, we do a pushing motion and a pulling motion. We use the adjustable pulley for this. And again, we're gonna do a perceived 8 repetition maximum. So he does as many reps as he thinks he'll be able to perform. We keep increasing the weight until we get to a number that he believes he'll be able to do 8 reps for. And we're gonna do this in our postural row position. And then we're gonna also then spin around and do this in our postural press position, looking at rowing and pressing strength in the upper half. Again, now Dan's numbers here were fantastic, so I had no issues at all. His strength levels were very high. So when we moved on to the power tests, I knew any lack in power was going to be a speed problem rather than a strength problem. Vertical jump, have a look at some explosiveness now. So we've just measured strength. Now we're looking at power. What that allows us to do is it allows us to take your power measurements, use your strength measurements to then work out if we want to improve your power, do we need to look at speed or do we need to look at strength? So we're going to get the power numbers. If strength is good, but power is low, we know we need to work on speed. If power is low, but strength is low, we'll work on strength first, right? But looking at power numbers now will give us a benchmark. So vertical jump, we're gonna reach up, we're gonna put a post-it note at a certain height. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna jump high as we can, put a second post-it note, which is going to measure the difference between the two. Okay? So the first power test we performed was the vertical jump, looking at lower body expressive power. His power score for his lower body was definitely lower than I would expect it to be. So it was 18.5, which really for someone of his strength levels and for his athleticism, I would expect him to be a minimum of 19, pushing towards kind of 20 and 21. So definitely an area for us to be interested in, that his lower body power is definitely a little bit lower than I was expecting it to be. Chest pass. Yeah. Taking a seat on the chair. Yeah. Ball up on the chest, you are basically going to throw this ball as far that way as you possibly can. Okay. That is it.
Can I do it?
Yeah, you can lean forward a little bit.
Yeah.
So we then moved on to our core testing and our upper body testing. So we first of all did our chest pass throw, looking at his upper body speed and power. And these numbers were really good. And his overhead throw, looking at his core power, also really, really high. So definitely seeing that the lower body was holding him back a little bit, but core and arms, definitely high numbers, the numbers I would expect him to have for such an athlete. Finally, we moved on to our rotational power test. So for this, we do a shot put test. We do left arm and right arm. Now, a really interesting point with this is Dan is actually a left-handed player who plays right-handed. So his dominant side is his left side. And you can instantly see this in the results. The results of his left side were significantly greater than his right side. Now, as a right-handed golfer, his left side was really good. So above and beyond what we would see for a right-handed golfer. But his right side was definitely limited compared to what we see as a right-handed golfer. So although his left side dominant and he's stronger on his left side, his right side was holding him back. And that's someone that is going to play golf as a right-hander, we definitely noticed that his speed on the right side was low. So we can see clearly the vertical jump was the one. So vertical force production was the lowest, right? Upper half, really good, okay? Upper half force rating is really good. What's interesting is with the move that you're now going to try and make, we need to use the ground a little more and need to use the ground a little bit better. So if that's not a huge power source for you, that's going to be a bit of a struggle. Your biggest power source is a pulling down of the arms, a driving of the arms, which actually you've been doing as your move. It's been like a thrust and a pull down, right? So we have 4 main power sources in the golf swing. We have a vertical thrust motion, we have a rotation motion, we have an arm chopping motion, and we have a release of the wrist. And from our power test, we could see that Dan was really good at releasing, really good hand speed and athleticism, and he was also really good at pulling the arms down, which we saw in his overhead throw motion. And what we saw in his old golf swing was he did a lot of this. He did a lot of pulling the arms down, working the hands down, but he got very cramped and close to the golf ball, very steep, and was got a lot of early extension. So what we're now seeing is in his power numbers, we're seeing why that maybe felt like a little bit more athletic move for him. We're starting to see that with the results we're seeing in power. You had a lot of power there, so that's why you felt like you were going to be quicker. You felt like you were going to be a little bit more explosive, but it was causing a lot of issues for you, right? It was causing a lot of bad moves for you, right? When we look at your rotary power, your left side, super above average. You're left-handed, that felt so comfortable for you. Unfortunately, you're playing golf right-handed now, right? And right-handed is below average rotary power.
Okay. Right.
So we're trying to now make a golf swing that's way more rotary, way more explosive through the ground. We're basically going to take away your power sources and move you into a position where you have the least amount of power, right? And that's why for you, when you spoke earlier, you said, I'm feeling wider, it's not going as far, but I feel like that's a move for me. We now have an opportunity to make that go further because we have your exact power sources. So even for a strong, powerful guy, the exact power saps that we're seeing or the power gaps that we're seeing are the ones that you're now exposing with this move, right? Okay. So it really shows an opportunity for us to work. Right side needs a lot of work, right side rotary needs a lot of work, and we basically need to match out that imbalance, essentially.
Yeah, cool.
And this concerns me a little bit because we've now got someone who's coming in that's going to try to create a little bit more of a rotational golf swing. They're trying to rotate a little bit more, trying to take the arms out of it to apply a little bit more of a different power source. But in that area, he doesn't have as much power. So it's going to be really interesting for us to see the speed numbers when we start to look into the golf swing. If you're away, we'll just check the numbers and then we'll talk a little bit about process, talk a little bit about routine, and talk a little bit about the swing feel. So just get an idea of where we are currently.
Yeah, cool.
So we can see Dan's new move that he's been working on, and I've known Dan for a while now. I can see the transformation in his golf swing is a super positive one. The numbers we're going to get from the full swing were fantastic. Path numbers look really good, face numbers look really good. He was striking it well, he was able to flight the ball, his routine looked good, and he looked really settled in this new move. But it became a little bit more interesting when we moved to the driver, something that it's kind of been his nemesis over the last few years. Getting off the tee has always created a little bit more of an issue for him. So it's really interesting to see what happened when we moved to driver. What happens different mentally when we want to now, for example, get the driver out?
I'll be honest, less now, to be honest. Like last few weeks, focusing on, like I said to a minute ago, like target ball flush, like saying that to myself and having that feel, it's pretty good. Like I feel it, I still get a bit nervous when I hit one, that off the tee, but like I feel more like I know where it's going to go.
What's the shape we're going to hit with this now?
It's a lot more neutral. If anything, probably like right to left.
Okay.
If it's going well. Because I think when I saw Jack, the reason he said go out there is I think when I was coming in there, I was coming in and the face was just wide open and pinging them out there. So doing that helps it.
We've gained a little bit more face control, gained a little bit more, but which then allows you to move a little bit more athletically, right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. That's it.
Okay.
So once we've got a few stock numbers, I was really interested to see what happens when we start to get him to swing harder. Now, for such a strong guy with such good power numbers, his swing speed for his stock driver was very low. He was swinging just above 100 mile an hour, which for someone of his athleticism is at least 10 mile an hour slower than where I would expect him to be. But what we saw when we got him to push harder and start to release a little bit more of that power that we know he has, he reverted back into his old move. That move that was causing him troubles and inconsistency. That was the move where he perceived a lot of power. So as soon as he started to try and deliver more of that speed, his move broke down. When you focus on the move that you've been trying to make, right? So trying to stay wide, trying to work on the rotation, you're going to cruise somewhere around the 100 to 103 mark.
Yeah.
That seems to be the numbers that we're seeing come out, right? When you let it go, you get up to around 106, 107.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're leaving that amount of speed out there.
Yeah.
But we know why.
Yeah.
Right? So we know that when you just think, I'm just going to hit this as hard as I can, you're going to go back to those power sources that you know that work. So an aggressive pulling down of the arms is going to work well for you. This type of motion, an aggressive this motion, because that's where your speed sits. Right? What we know isn't a big power source for you is right rotation, so a lot of this, and a lot of good use of driving and pressing out the floor, okay, and the combination of those two together. So I think what we're going to have to do is work on improving the power source whilst you're still working on that move, and then suddenly that move will just be your 106, 107 move. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But I think that's why you're seeing this breakdown. It's like you literally say, I can't do both, whereas because if you try and hit it hard, you're going to go back to old power source, which is an aggressive thrust towards the ball, pull down at the arms and getting stuck here. It's been really hard for you to do the two together.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that does, completely.
I think that's where we are. I think it's as simple as that.
Yeah.
I think if we just build the power back in, you don't need to feel like you're swinging it as hard as you can in your mind, which is going to tap you back to that power source. But what you'll start to realise is, and you've got the ability to train with numbers as well, which is going to help you. That move is suddenly become the faster move, faster move, faster move, faster move, and then you won't need to go back to your old power source of trying to thrust down and pull this way, because you'll just be able to hit it far this way and straighter.
Yeah, spot on.
Make sense?
Yeah, it does, mate. Yeah,
Cool.
yeah, it's good.
So this is going to be a really good conversation for us to have with Jack, his golf coach, because what we're seeing here is a discrepancy between his move and where his power sits. And if his move is something that's going to be more consistent, we have to start to build his power blueprint around that move. So it's going to require us to build up this right-hand side, build up this rotation, build up this lower body power and athleticism, so that the move that he's trying to make that he's more consistent in becomes his power dominant move. And once we move this power dominance over for Dan, he's going to feel like when he swings harder, this move gets more ingrained. And that's going to feel great for him because he'll feel like he can stand up, hit it hard, and know that his move is going to be consistent. Where at the moment there's a conflict between him swinging freely, swinging hard, and the move he's trying to create. So it's been great having Dan in today. Really appreciate him spending the time with us down in the studio. Some really interesting findings for us. We've got some restrictions that we need to free up in terms of his hips, but we've got some big power saps that we're going to try and make it up here. So we're doing a lot of work in his new training plan on working on his right hand rotation, really trying to build up this right arm, trying to build some strength and rotation in this right side. We're also going to be doing some work on his speed of the lower body, improving his vertical jump and improving his ability to create force through the ground, and transferring this into some moves that are going to be a little bit more similar to what he's trying to make in his golf swing.